Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Wednesday's Live. I'm a little late. Had to just deal with a few things here at home. I'm just going to get my mic out. All right. There we are. Hopefully that means you can hear me better. I'm not sure if it makes a difference, to be honest, but here we are. So here's today's topic. Have you ever walked into a workplace only to want to turn around and exit and go straight home because the behaviors were so deplorable that they were unsafe either emotionally or physically? You probably have either heard of it or witnessed it. And so this week I was chatting with a friend, which is why I've brought this topic forward today. Obviously, if you've known me for a while, you know my name's Tammy, and I deal with workplace relationships and interpersonal relationships and how to help navigate them so you don't have to have that feeling when you walk into a workplace that you need to get the H out. But let me tell you this quick story. I'm going to keep names out of it and places out of it. Of course, confidentiality is important. I've been mentoring a friend of mine for quite a while, seems to have found herself in a bit of a pickle in the workplace because she's really kind, she's really good, she's outgoing, and for whatever reason, the bully doesn't like that and has made her a target. And so she's been struggling to find safety in the workplace. The other day I spoke with her, and she's just taken a new job to get away from the old situation. Sometimes you've got to just make that decision, right? Sometimes it is the best decision to just leave. I mean, after you've done everything you can, that's still a decision and still your power to do it. So anyway, she's got a new job. She's thinking this is going to be the place to rebuild, to recover, to kind of reconnect with people. And lo and behold, she walks in, and right away she is faced with really bad behavior from other nurses and healthcare professionals. So she calls me up in a panic, and as I do with everybody, I coach and mentor her through this situation. Now, maybe you've come into somebody who just has some bad language, like I swear every once in a while, and it offends people, and that is something that you're dealing with. Or perhaps you're dealing with some poor practice behaviors. Maybe they're not documenting accurately. So I've certainly heard people who are faking their assessments, charting them as if they were done, but they weren't actually. If that's you, stop that shit right now. Just didn't do it. Maybe you've seen poor practice in terms of people not working their full hours and leaving as soon as the boss is gone. And actually that's called theft, right? So they're stealing time, they're stealing money, they're getting paid for work they didn't do. Maybe you know people who are lying. They don't tell the truth. They are making up stories, and they just have a bad attitude. This job sucks. I don't want to be here. And so there's a whole host of reasons why you might be walking into a place that is horrible. Now, this week I just released a video on YouTube called Why Nursing, but it was it was a journey as to how nursing found me and all the great things nursing has provided for me, and I want it to be that way for you, and it can be. Now, listen, I've journeyed through a ton of shit, a ton, and so let me just put the comments here, and I'm still in it, and I still love it, and so you can still love this too. But in the Why Nursing video, it's come to light that maybe we should also be asking why nursing from the other angle. I was asking it from how nursing got to be my profession. But in today's culture, where there's an awful lot of stress and strain, and relationships are probably more fragile now than they've ever been as a result of COVID. We have staff members who are out from work. We've got replacement staff members coming in. We've got patients and families who are stressed and pissed off, frankly, with the current situation that they can't come in. And so relationships are probably at an all-time low. Support among colleagues is likely to feel a little fractured sometimes, maybe not always safe. And I certainly know of healthcare providers who are going to work and lying about their safety to work because they feel obligated to be there. So there's a whole shitload of stuff going on out there, right? And I'm not here to judge any of you, just to give you some tools. So if you happen to walk into a place and you know this, right? So when I found out that this nurse had lied on her fit for work and she came to work anyways, What's the next best action? Or you have come across somebody who's leaving work early every day, like maybe an hour early, the boss is not around, they're just taken off. What is the next best action? Or perhaps you just happen to work with somebody who uses really harsh language. They're rude. They don't realize maybe that the way they speak, the words that they choose, is causing people to feel on edge. Hey, Mrs. Bubbles, thanks there for the topic appreciation. You're in healthcare, not a nurse. Healthcare, yeah, it is a struggle daily with these types of behaviors. Definitely feel obligated to stay. Absolutely. I think a lot of people feel this way in healthcare today. People go into nursing to help, right? People go into nursing because they want to make a difference. And before COVID hit, many of us would go to work with a runny nose, a sore throat. So today, for nurses to make that decision, or healthcare to make that decision, doesn't seem that far disconnected from our past behaviors, but because of the current climate, it makes people very judgmental and extremely panicked about what this potentially could mean. So a lot of education needs to happen. So if you happen to be in one of those places where you're feeling a little bit on edge, you're feeling a little bit unsafe, or you're just really concerned about patient outcomes or your ability to do your job without being judged harshly, there are some steps that you can take. The first step, and you're going to find guidance in your nursing regulations, your code of ethics, your workplace, respectful workplace behaviors if you're not directly a nurse. Lots of places to find these resources. But the first thing you need to do, and I say need to do, it's not a want, is to have a conversation with the person where the issue exists. And oh my gosh, that's just so sweet. A4, 22%. Thanks a lot. That's very sweet. Okay, so the conversation needs to happen at the lowest level, because here's what happens when you don't start there. And this is what typically happens. People are really nervous. They feel really uncertain about how to have this conversation. This is what I help people with in the Relationship Revolution training. And there's free resources there if you want to go there after this podcast, after this video episode. Safe conversation starters. And the reason why we have more conflict and more drama in the workplace than we need to have is because people are not having the conversations where they need to happen. Now, you may be watching not from healthcare. You could be watching in any workplace. Maybe it's engineering. Maybe it's chemical, like gas and oil or something else. Or maybe you're just at the grocery store. Any of these places, those conversations need to happen at the lowest level. You're going to find that in your workplace of respect and your guidelines for your profession. The reason it doesn't happen there is because socially we've been constructed to feel like we are not safe to say that we're disappointed with something. We don't have the safety to say, hey, that's wrong, let's look at this in another way. Because we're always worried about preventing harm to another person's feelings. So much so that we will internalize and try to minimize our contact with the other person. So then we go to the next level and we bring in the supervisor. Now, for you yourself, I would imagine that you personally would prefer that people come to you directly if there's a problem, so that you can maybe understand what's going on and fix it or work towards a resolution. And if that's what you would like, then I'm going to challenge you today and every day going forward to give the other person with whom you are in conflict with, whether this is work, family, home, community, now it doesn't matter, to give them also that same gift that you will bring to them any conversation where you feel uncomfortable with them, with what they've done, with how they've said something, because that's where that first conversation needs to happen. It's about giving somebody the gift of grace. The grace to learn, the grace to grow, and the grace to make mistakes and not be perfect. Because I am not, far from it. I make a lot of mistakes, right? So that's where the first conversation needs to happen. Now, if you need some help with how to start that conversation, as I mentioned at the relationshiprevolution.ca website, there is a link there, or you can just put relationshiprevolution.ca / safe conversation starters. And you can download, it's like a 12-page document. It's going to give you scripts of things you can say to the 10 most likely harmful behaviors you might come into contact with at work. So you don't have to worry about what to say in order to start the conversation. It takes that stress out of it. And I can promise you that these conversation starters set a really collaborative tone. They are non-judgmental. They're meant to be exploratory and curious in nature in order to move the relationship forward. Now, I also have a more advanced tool in there called the perception check, one of my favorites. And so in that document, I want you to have tools that you can use right now, because I don't want you to go to the supervisor, because here's what happens. And you know, because you've probably had somebody do this to you. If that's happened to you, you know that you have felt like shit. Now you feel like you're on the boss's radar. You feel like people are looking at you and watching you. And it's an unnecessary stress in the workplace. And so if that is your tactic, if that is your strategy, is to avoid the conversation and go to the next level, you are also creating more chaos and drama in the workplace, because that person will feel disrespected by you by not feeling safe enough to come. I know there's a lot of things that go into building safety, into having that conversation. That's what I work with people in our course, in our masterclass, outside the scope of today's video. But if you're looking to build that confidence and build that skill set in order to have that lowest level conversation, you will find amazing results. I want to share a story with you right now, actually. We're going to get to the next 2 steps that you can do. But lowest level conversation. So I was taking over as a teacher in a clinical site for a staff member who had fallen ill in their last week. I think I had 2 or 3 days with this group. And I walked in, and these are LPN students. We're in a long-term care facility, and it's morning, and I don't really know the lay of the land yet. So my whole purpose this first morning is to really just kind of get a feel for what's happening in this facility while supporting the students to continue to grow. At report, you know, the nursing students, if you've been there in any of your professions, you know that you usually go around, introduce yourself and who you have. Great. And within that, I really quickly learned that there was a dynamic in this workplace that was troublesome. And I wasn't quite sure what to do with it at first. So in the morning report, as the students mentioned, I'm Jane, I have so-and-so, I'm Bob, I have so-and-so. The one student spoke up, and when she mentioned who her patient was, a staff member was like, "That's your assignment?" And I was really keen to watch that not a single person employed by that facility even flinched or looked uncomfortable when she spoke that. So that was a very curious moment for me. So at the end of the report, I gathered up the students and I asked them about this particular incident, and if this was the norm with this person, or if this was an off day for this person. And they all said to me, they've been terrified of her. She's always been like that. So much so that if she's assigned on the unit that they're working, because there's different wings, that they will not go to her for help. They will go to another wing and pull the staff member away from those patients to help them with patient care. So I ask you, is that acceptable? There better be a hell no coming out of your mouth right now. Absolutely, it's not acceptable on any level. So my students didn't know how to have lowest level conversation, and they were doing what a lot of people do. Let's put our head down, avoid it, and just not even address this, okay? So that's not okay. I already know I'm going to teach them how to have this conversation, but I need to do a bit more investigating because I'm brand new here. Hey, Lance, thanks for popping in there. Positivity is key. Yes, if you're positive about how you can address things, it certainly makes the momentum easier to swing into action. Yes, that's a hell no. Absolutely. Thank you for that. Woo-woo. Okay, so the next step was I needed to investigate. I needed to become curious. I had to put on my curiosity hat to find out from the staff members if this person was having an off day, because sometimes, you know, students can feel threatened just by a particular personality, someone who's outspoken or confident or more directive in nature than collaborative can cause some tension. So I wanted to just check in with the staff members and see, is this how she normally talks, or was this maybe an off day? Because I didn't really see you guys get too upset by it. I learned from the staff members that she always talks, you've probably heard this, oh, that's just Sally. We just ignore her. We just don't pay her any attention. So they've already adapted their own strategy to overcome their discomfort by ignoring the situation. So that's not good. So the next thing I do is I talk with my students. I tell them my plan of action, which means I'm going to go talk now to the it was a healthcare aide directly. I think it was a healthcare aide or an LPN. Either way, we're going to have a conversation directly with them. And I pulled this person aside. And here's how you would have a conversation if you want to structure it. First, you need to share your observation. This is your perception check that you can get that free download at relationshiprevolution.ca/safe conversation starter. Describe the behavior, give a couple different reasons as to why this may have happened, and then ask for clarification. So as I shared with her morning rounds, as my student said this, I recognized that this was kind of how you responded and kind of put that to her. And then I also shared with her that it was creating tension and the students were afraid of her. Now, most people would believe that if someone is going to be dismissive in tone, in words, in actions, putting down others verbally among staff members, that they would have some sort of awareness that they are doing this. In fact, the research shows that 80%, 85% of people do not have the awareness. They do not have the insight that the way in which they act is causing problems. And with that, most of those conversations, I think it was 70% was the stat. I'm pulling that out of the cobwebs here. 70% or higher would stop the offending behavior with one conversation, lowest level, which is why it's so important. I can't preach that one enough. So I shared with this healthcare worker how her behaviors were affecting the students, and she was horrified. She had zero insight that the way in which she was talking was actually causing this disconnection. And she immediately went down to the students, apologized, and she made sure she was available to them for the rest of the day. And we only had 3 days left there. If we had worked with her after that, which I don't think we did, but the students were stunned at the turnaround. And that is the power of having a conversation at the lowest level. It gives them the grace to learn that maybe what they're saying or what they're doing or their actions are actually not in line with what would be considered respectful and appropriate for your profession. So if lowest level is something you're scared of, here's a few places you can find maybe a courage to have this conversation. You need to know what is the way I can approach this. One is in your code of ethics or in your workplace of respect. You go to that policy and read it and really resonate with those pieces and where, maybe you have a responsibility to address behaviors, because you do, you're going to find it in there. But they also have a responsibility to be at a particular level of work. And sometimes it's about preventing patient harm. That might be the approach that you need to go and talk to them. That's what your value is. So you go and you say, listen, I'm concerned about patient safety and I've noticed these behaviors and I'm not sure if that's really what if my interpretation is correct. Can you help me understand to make sure that we're both working towards the same goal? Because you both get up in the same day hoping for the best outcome for patients. All right. Second thing is creating a safe workplace. That might be another angle that you use. If you are currently in Canada, I know in Alberta specifically, I don't know the other provinces' occupational health and safety laws, but now workplaces have a legal responsibility to provide you with a safe workplace. And so circling back to my friend now who has walked into this workplace, she's being verbally abused and she feels physically threatened by a worker just walking in there because there's been some behind the scenes stuff going on there. You know what she wanted to do? Quit. I'm going to resign. I'm going to leave this place. I'm just going to walk away. And that's a really typical response too. It's our fight or flight. With some conversation, recognizing that she would feel bad knowing that this person was still working within the facility and treating people poorly, and looking at her responsibilities through the code of ethics and the regulations for her profession, she was able to find the courage to go back and say, you know what, to her boss, this is not a safe space. You owe me a safe space. Here's what I'm noticing. What are we going to do about this? Like, let's collaborate as to how we can make this space. Right? Newfoundland! Oh, Lance, that's awesome. I love the East Coast. Got me all excited. I spent 6 years in New Brunswick. That's where I did my training for nursing at the University of New Brunswick. Fantastic. East Coast. Cool. All right, and then there's policies that you can follow. So those are 3 ways you can start a conversation. You're worried about patient safety. You've noticed a policy that maybe they aren't aware of. Give them the grace to maybe not know something, because we don't know it all. Even if it's been out for like years and people know they should be respectful to each other, you know what? It's all good to say, hey, I was looking at this policy and I noticed this. What do you think of it? Have a conversation. Give them the grace that maybe they don't remember. Everyone has a bad day. That's covered in that free download as well. Bad days versus bullies. Super important to know the difference. And creating a safe workplace. Everybody has the right to a safe workplace. So those are 3 ways you can start a conversation. Now, if that conversation at lowest level doesn't go as you had hoped, there is no harm in coming home, reflecting and thinking about it, because sometimes timing is important. Sometimes it's the way in which you approach it. It's the words that you use, the body language you're unaware of. Think about what you did. And if you feel it's okay to have a second conversation, go back and revisit with them and say, you know what? Yesterday, I don't think I did a really good job at really connecting with you, because I know we're both here for patient safety, and I think I maybe would like to try that again. And then if they're willing, you have a second conversation. If not, it is okay to say, you know, I still have concerns, and I'm going to go and get some support and some mentoring from the supervisor, because I like this relationship really matters to me, and I'm just kind of lost right now. Let them know your next step of action. I think that's important too, so they're not blindsided. Okay? So lowest level, then next you're going to bring in the supervisor. And I always recommend to go to the supervisor as, I need some support and I'm not sure how to deal with this. Can I ask you some questions? It brings them into the fold of responsibility to mentor you and to look into things potentially if that needs to happen, instead of you going to them and saying, we got a problem and you need to fix it. I've had people come to me before with that, and I'm like, well, I don't think I have a problem. Okay. So I do love the approach of bringing the supervisor in as an ally, as a mentor, as a coach, so that you can safely share your concerns, ask for guidance. And if it's something they feel that they just need to build your skill set up into having that conversation, a good manager and leader will build your capacity. If it's something they feel might be a little bit above that and require a little bit more involvement, maybe of HR, for example, if you're working with someone who is going home early all the time, remember we talked theft of time, that's a little bit more of an HR job description responsibility conversation. They may just say, leave that with me, I'm going to have a talk with them. But you've already had your lowest level, so they're going to know what you did, why you did it, and so they're not blindsided, and then maybe they'll start to think about their actions. Now, if you happen to work in a place where, so bullying can actually involve multiple levels. If it's a bullying situation, you have a colleague, the behaviors aren't stopping, you go to the supervisor who happens to either be incapable or they're friends with, and they're not looking like they're going to do anything or they're not capable, you need to go to the next level. You have to follow your policies and your practices. Fill in the appropriate paperwork, grievances if that is, or a workplace hazard assessment. You need to make sure that documentation is completed. And then, of course, you can contact your union if you need some further support, right? So potentially, I just learned this the other day. If you happen to be in a situation and you want to record how someone is talking with you, apparently, confirm this please with your place. It is within your legal right to do so in order for safety measures. So if you have your phone on and it's just recording the conversation in your pocket, that would not be a job action against you because you're protecting your safety. That was interesting for me to learn. So that's how you deal with bad days and bad people, bad people in the workplace. Lowest level, always lowest level first. And if you feel unsafe, find a mentor to coach you through those conversations. If you'd like some more information, head on over to relationshiprevolution.ca. You'll see there's multiple ways that you can get some resources. I have a webinar on Thursday, tomorrow. There's also free downloads. And then if you'd like more information about the programming, that is there as well. And, oh wait, I'm also looking for people to have conversations with me. I'm still doing some research to dig a little bit deeper into the relationships to make sure my program hasn't missed anything that people will need. So you can find that access there as well. Thanks for joining. I'm just going to check the comments here really quick. Mrs. Bubble has been in healthcare since 1984, and this is the all-time worst. Boss doesn't, I'm going to follow this up here. Boss doesn't intervene. Coworkers are also dealing with. HR does nothing. Person doesn't accept responsibility. This does sound like a very significant situation, and I'm wondering if it sounds like it's dealing with one person in particular. If you've been able to have that conversation with this particular person using those safe kind of strategies, right? So bringing to their attention what it is that you see. It has to be fact-based. It can't just be, you're just acting like a jerk. That won't go over. You need to say, listen, when you talk to others in that tone, like when your voice is raised and you're rolling your eyes, what is factual? And then ask for two potential reasons. It is quite possible that this person you're talking about, I mean, at this point, it sounds like they should know that what they're doing is incorrect. If, the boss has done something and HR has done something, even though it looks like maybe nothing. And then if that's the case, follow your paperwork trail, put in the reports. But I would really encourage you to go back and have that first level conversation with her if you haven't, and download the resource. It's going to give you really great ways to start that conversation. Awesome. Okay. Thank you for all the information. I'm planning to share this video with a coworker. Oh, awesome. That's fantastic. I wonder if it's the coworker. Dun, dun, dun. Mrs. Bubbles will have to answer that one. Lance says, workplace dynamics are definitely something I noticed during clinical. Yeah, so as a student in particular, it does feel like there's a little bit more of a hierarchical element into nursing. Good nurses will recognize that students feel that way, and they'll bring you into the fold. Part of their job is to integrate you and to introduce you to others and into the processes and to really make you feel like you're part of the team. That being said, they're also human, and I certainly know when I have students, I want to do that, definitely. In my mind, I feel like I'm getting behind. As you know, it just takes longer with students. And so how I define success at the end of the day is being able to meet all the demands and tasks while also being able to care emotionally for the people in my fold. And with that, sometimes it can come across as if they don't want to have you there. And that's likely not the case. It's just like they're thinking, okay, I've spent all this great time teaching, and now I just feel like I need about an hour to kind of catch up so I can teach some more. And maybe that's the conversation in clinical. I recognize that in myself. And sometimes I just have to say, can you just watch for a little while? I just want to kind of catch us up, get us back to a good place, and then we'll get back into a little bit more teaching and more hands-on. That's okay too. Mrs. Bubble, small office, 8 people in total. All right, so that's really going to, it's been ignored for years is part of the issue. Yeah, I'm going to guess it's probably a non-unionized place, and that if the boss and supervisors and HR are unwilling to do anything, then your choice is, how do I set my boundaries up in this relationship so that I feel safe physically and emotionally with this person? Because boundaries is really important. We have boundaries in times and values, and there's a few others that we talk about in the course. How do I communicate that? How do I reinforce that? How do I stand in my truth every day? Or if I can't do that here, and I'm going home feeling drained every day, and I'm regretting coming into work the next day, I have a choice to find somewhere else to work. Maybe not tomorrow. I know that the COVID situation has change things for a lot of people, but to start thinking about your exit and to start thinking about how can I best position myself. I mean, you've been nursing since 84, I think you said, so you may be, I don't know how old you are, and I don't want to assume you're going to be retiring soon, but I graduated in 87 from high school. So I know you're a little older than me, but not necessarily ready to retire. So it may be just something as that. And so no HR, no union, no HR. Yeah. So you're in a place where you reduced your hours drastically. Now it's worse because of your decision to reduce your hours. Yeah. So it sounds like maybe stress leave. If your organization has benefits, The next level is to make sure that you're taking care of yourself, talk with your physician, maybe get some stress leave, and get that distance and that time and that space away from it. Sometimes, I mean, I've been there. I took 4 stress leaves in one job before I asked to leave because the job wasn't changing. The people weren't changing. It was me who had to change, but I was already too sick to stay there. So for me, I had to physically remove myself to rebuild myself and to put back in the things in my life that I needed to have that were lost in the old relationship. So I've definitely had to do that myself. Oh, I'd love to talk with you more all over the country. Sweet. Okay, so that's what I see for the comments, and this has been fantastic. Thanks for all the questions and the comments and the engagement. Do go get that free resource because I think that might help you, even you, Mrs. Bubbles. I don't think there's any relationship that is irreparable in the sense of creating either the safety or the exit. There are a couple of different options. Yeah. So Lance says, I tend to get along well with the entire interdisciplinary team. However, nursing is a very stressful occupation, and sometimes a conflicting environment arises. Yeah, absolutely. And that's a lot of because we have different methodologies in how we go from A to B, but that doesn't mean that either idea is right or wrong. It's sometimes about a preference. Like they'll tell you how to start an IV, but there are maybe some parts of that you can flex and do in your own way, whereas another person would look at you and judge you because you didn't do it by their way. And so those are the conversations. And in that download, you're going to find that there's actually some really safe ways to talk about those differences when they arise to help start a conversation, to have that collaboration, to bring down the judgment and kind of come back to the same level. So yeah, insight is not always noticed. That is huge for me as well. Sometimes I don't realize what I'm doing. I am open to feedback, and that's what I always tell people. So thanks for joining, guys. Any more questions, last minute questions? I can't see if you're joining me on Facebook to see if there's any questions there. These are all my YouTubers who are watching right now. So if you haven't seen my video this week, it's called Why Nursing? I share my origin story as to how nursing found me. It was not on my radar at all. And yet it's quite a natural fit. So it's an interesting story. And then of course I ask you guys some questions in that video as well to find out what your origin story is, so I can just kind of connect with you guys a little bit more. Thanks for watching, and I hope you have a great day, guys.